I asked a law enforcement officer recently, can we agree that if I wasn't shot with my gun, then I was shot with another gun? And he didn't say a word when I asked this question. I then said, and that means somebody came to my home and shot me. Okay. And, if we take everything else, if we forget that I was told about the young girl being murdered, or we just forget about the evidence showing, the where it looks like they murdered the last guy, and we forget everything else and just focus on one thing. If I wasn't shot with my gun, then I was shot with another gun. And that means somebody came to my home and shot me. Right? I mean, that's simple. Anybody ought to be able to figure that out. Okay. And then I started listing the evidence proving that I wasn't shot with my gun. And here's my list. I put dot points on each one of them. And then, but I have it down here below this Facebook post, and that's what I'm going to show you, each one of these. And Lisa Rogers is documented as saying that I was shot with a .45 handgun. Remember, the lie was that I shot with my shotgun. And so, has anybody asked Lisa how she knows that? And I've wondered if her son was here. And okay, the size of pellets removed from my foot were 2.5 sizes different than what was in my gun. That's ballistic evidence. And ballistic evidence all the time sends people to prison or lets them off, because the guy with the 22 didn't shoot the guy that has a hole in him with the 45. And the size of pellets are different than what was. I mean, it wasn't shot with my gun. Point blank. Second proof. And then the surgeon stated he removed a large amount of plastic from the wound. And that was on the surgeon's report right here. It was a large amount of plastic and lead pellet debris. And then you have people, it has a wadding in it. Well, the ER doctor, my brother-in-law I didn't know about, removed the plastic wadding before surgery. So it wasn't the wadding. And, and that's led us to believe that I was shot with a plastic tip pellet-filled bullet called a Glacier safety slug to make my murder look like an accident. But that's 3 proofs I wasn't shot with my gun. And back to the original question, can we agree that if I wasn't shot with my gun, somebody come to my home and shot me? Now let's move on to a little more evidence. The ER nurse documented me saying that alarms kept going off. The first call for a burglary was 14 months before this, and evidence shows a burglar got trapped in my guest bathroom. And since then, I've probably made 100 videos of burglar alarms going off in my attic, and I even installed a Vivint alarm system that dispatched the police to my attic, to my home. These crimes, now people all over the place are reporting people in their attic. These crimes are going on here. But here's the nurse's notes. There are sirens going off. The alarms kept going off. I was shot during a home invasion. There's another proof, okay? A lot of the people trying to cover up the crimes mentioned the lie made up by Rosa Rodriguez, the detective. No tripwires in evidence. No pictures of a tripwire. No other officer mentioned a tripwire, including the CSI that picked up my shotgun from my home, and triple proof that I wasn't shot with my gun. This was a lie and perjury by Detective Rosa Rodriguez, the lifelong friend of the ex-wife, who is alleged to be involved in the shooting by her boyfriend. And here is some of the police reports from Marty Barrett, the CSI. Here's where he says he picked up my gun. He didn't say he picked up my gun and a tripwire, because it wasn't a tripwire. There wasn't no tripwire in evidence. There were no pictures of tripwire. I wasn't shot with my gun. And here's the shotgun in evidence. The shotgun that I wasn't shot with. According to Empire Pride Investigation, the first law enforcement officer to arrive at my house was Martin County Sheriff John Woodward, who was followed by the late Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor. It took 6 years, $2,000 reward to get him identified. Nobody has answered why a sheriff from a different county was at my house minutes after I crawled out to survive a capital murder attempt. The police seen at my home after they had tried to disable my camera were not identified for 6 years, and that happened only after I offered a $2,000 reward. This is actually a screenshot from the text message from the private investigator telling me the names of them. I'll read them to you. We got Rosa Rodriguez, April Chandler, Tony Dickey, Greg Chatwell, Greg Nelson, Marty Barrett, Chad Simpson, Mike Naylor, Mark Gilliam, Michael Glitt, and John Woodward. And let me tell you something here. These names don't match what was found on the long withheld police report that I just got a couple months ago, and the police report was falsified because the timestamps don't match what the cameras show. That's why they withheld it. Multiple people are documented saying underground facilities and tunnels is here. This is just one guy used to live in my house, Ricky Ronaldo. He said, I used to live there when I was a kid. There were tunnels under the house. Me and my brother used to go down there. 2 weeks before I'm ambushed and shot, I called the El Paso and the Midland DEA and reported a suspected tunnel. My phone records will prove that. Several death threats told me to move from my home or be killed. This is just one of several, okay? And Shannon Jeter here is telling me about be careful with the cops. They can kill you and get away with it. He's suggesting it was cops that killed me, which might explain why no law enforcement officer has been making arrests in this murder attempt, okay? And then he tells me to stop publicizing their business and go buy me another home. And what's their business? Is it human trafficking, sex slavery, killing little girls that won't prostitute for you? I mean, I just don't know here. Triple proof my x-rays were faked at the hospital. Okay, and this is only one of the proofs right here. It shows where the ER doctor, who turned out to be the brother-in-law of the ex-wife just filed divorce on, right, orders 3 x-rays. It's counseled by a secret lab tech called user in interface, who then reorders 2 x-rays, and then the secret lab tech returns x-rays or timestamped before they were ordered. Okay, it's believed to be a guy shot 11 days before me. Stolen voice recorders handwritten on the evidence logs after I made a point of it being stolen. I can't tell you how many times I posted about that voice recorder stolen from my house, and all of a sudden just this year I find out they scribbled out one piece of evidence and hand wrote it in because of my social media post saying that the voice recorder was stolen. That's why the secret police come in my home. They were stealing evidence. They were covering up this murder attempt. Arthur Welch documented saying he believes the ex-wife had a lot to do with the shooting from the things she said, and she threatened to have him killed too, okay? And he says, do you think she had anything to do with the shooting? I dated her for a short time here in Lubbock, and she threatened to have me killed. Well, I think she had a lot to do with the things she said, and I'm so never will trust her. That's Arthur Welch telling me this about 8 months after I crawled out and survived the murder attempt, okay? And the ex-wife that he was mentioning had taken my life insurance booklets when we separated less than a month before the murder attempt. I didn't know this until she brought them back about a week before with filled out divorce papers. Okay, and what they showed was I have an accidental death policy, supplemental and basic. And if her friend Rosa Rodriguez ruled my murder an accident, it would add 2 times annual base pay. That's about $200,000, and then another $250,000. So altogether, it was an extra $500,000 on top of everything else if my murder's ruled an accident by her friend Rosa Rodriguez. Okay, and what's interesting, on the day of the divorce in March, when I get home, I get a phone call on my company cell phone. We check the records, 432-209-6494, from this ex-wife asking me if I changed the beneficiaries over. A law enforcement officer could verify that and ask why that question was asked. Many people would think if I hadn't changed them beneficiaries over that day, then there was going to be another accident. Well, and so let's go back up to the top right here. Can we agree that I wasn't shot by a gun, then I was shot with another gun? Absolutely, 100% positive I wasn't shot with my gun. That means I was shot with another gun, and we've got some obstruction of justice going on, and it looks like it's not just covering up the capital attempted murder in my home or my life, but also the murder of that little girl, and then Mike Lawhon too.